Hi again, guys. Tonight we're going to start our second video on genetics, and we're going to get now to modern genetics, meaning the area of DNA. So what Mendel taught us was that traits are passed from parent to offspring, but Mendel still didn't know exactly what was passed from parents to offspring. And as science got more complex and we learned about cell structures and nuclei and chromosomes, it became clear to scientists that there probably is something in the cell, probably in the nucleus, that is being passed down, that's in charge of our traits. Okay, and in order for us to understand how a gene works, how a trait can be passed down, we really need to know what they're made of. And like many things in science, this was not a discovery that took a minute, but rather many experiments that basically went from the 20s to the 50s led scientists to the understanding that a gene or a trait is encoded in DNA, and that molecule is found in the. So the experiments listed here helped determine that DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is the molecule responsible for transmitting traits. But the structure of DNA, or the way it looks, the way it works, was not discovered until 1953 by James Watson and Francis Crick. These were two very famous scientists. They won the Nobel Prize for their work. And James Watson is actually still alive today. And what they discovered was that DNA was shaped as a double helix. So this right over here, this twisted ladder, that is a double helix. So what is the structure of DNA? Well, its shape is a double helix, but it's made of building blocks. You guys remember that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, that simple sugars are the building blocks of carbohydrates. Well, when it comes to DNA, there's three molecules. When it comes to DNA, the building block is called a nucleotide. So we say the building block of DNA is a nucleotide. The building block of a protein is an amino acid. But the nucleotides themselves are made of three substances. They're made of a sugar, a phosphate, and a nitrogen base. So DNA is shaped as a double helix. The smallest individual piece of DNA is called a nucleotide, and nucleotides are made of sugar, phosphate, and nitrogen bases. So here we have some more diagrams of a DNA molecule. This one's flat and 1D. We see the S's represent the sugars, and the P's on the side are the phosphates, and then you'll see the base pairs are in the middle. And you'll notice these base pairs have letters. A, T, G, and C. Those letters are going to be important for us. This is a flat DNA molecule, one that's been untwisted and laid flat. That's why it kind of just looks like a ladder. Here we have the same idea, just in color, and here we have basically what you might be thinking. The structure is basically a long, twisty rope, laddery type thingy. Now, obviously, when it was first described, there was more science behind it, but that could be funny. So now, going back once, we have our DNA molecule, and what we'll see is that these letters, the A, T, and G, and C, they form the genetic code. The order of these letters will determine a trait. But how many of these letters do we need to make a trait? Or how is our DNA organized? So here we can see that chromosomes are structures which contain DNA. So these are our chromosomes that we know from mitosis. And these individual chromosomes are made up of many genes. So what you see here is this band on the chromosome is made of two genes. A gene is a piece of DNA that codes for a trait. So I have my letters, my subunits. Let's call this one section. We'll say this one section of DNA codes for a trait, so that's a gene. But that's only one small piece on the gigantic molecule of DNA. Another way of looking at it is here. We've actually had this diagram before. We see a cell, then a nucleus, and a chromosome. Okay, here we see a chromosome. The chromosome is made of individual genes. Well, maybe this is one gene. And the genes are made of DNA. And DNA is made of nitrogen base pairs. Okay, and there are some rules with base pairing. I said before that the letters make up a code, but there's a rule of how the letters go together. The base A, which stands for adenine, always pairs with base T, which stands for thymine, and base C, cytosine, always pairs with guanine. So we see here AT, GC. The way I remember that is A and T spells the word at, and G and C reminds me of the word Gucci. So that's how we remember which base pairs with which. And they're held together by weak hydrogen bonds. If we go back, we could see here that in this molecule, the A's are with T's, G's are with C, T with A, and C can also end C with G. Now, right on the bottom here, we have the sentence that the base pairs are held together by weak hydrogen bonds. That's important because these bonds are going to come apart when DNA is copied, and we will go over that in class.